on the September 2025 What's Neat.
George Bogatiuk from Soundtracks. I asked him to make me a video on how to do a decoder installation. The What's Neat show is sponsored by Lombard Hobbies, your value hobby shop for over 40 years of modelers helping modelers. Big inventory, value pricing, fast shipping, and great service. And by Broadway Limited Imports, the cutting-edge leader in model trains. Check out their website at broadway-limited.com. And by Bachmann Trains. Now that's the way to run a railroad. Check out their website at bachmanntrains.com. And thank you for helping us support the best hobby in the world. This is What's Neat for September 2025. I'm your host, Ken Patterson, and this month we've got a good show in that Bachmann Industries stops by. Tyler Haining and Matt Stern tell us all about the new products that are announced over the last month. And there's a lot of neat new things coming out. The N-Scale guys, you know, there's a lot of neat N-Scale stuff coming out. They're going to be excited. Also this month, George Bogatiuk from Soundtracks. I asked him to make me a video on how to do a decoder installation. And I gave to him some old Atlas switch engines that I've had for about 25 years. And I absolutely loved these models. And so I wanted him to add some blinking beacons to the roof, make them all flashy, and also add Soundtracks' Tsunami Sound to them. And in fact, he did that. And I've got those engines here on this layout I've got set up out here. Absolutely beautiful models. I just, for some reason, just really loved the blue color and the paint outs on them. So now they've got great sound in them. And they also have beacons on top, which I'm very happy about. So what George does this month for us is he created an 80-minute long video on how he installed the sound into these locomotives. I know that's long for a What's Neat show, but from start to finish, adding the special speaker enclosures that he talks about in the show, those are special made. The beacons, absolutely magnificent. I couldn't believe how small the LEDs are that pack up into those detailed associate beacons. It's just perfect the way they flash. And also just the sound in general. It's fabulous. Of course, it's Tsunami. It's supposed to be, right? All the sound these days is so good. But it's a great video. You don't have to watch it all at once. Now today, I've got some gorgeous models out here that I'm shooting from Broadway Limited Imports, and that's why I'm outside today, opening this video. I've got High Hood GP35 right here, N&W number 214. And I've also got the Reading GP35. Just the standard hood that we're used to, just absolutely beautiful, crisp paint. The windshield wipers, the handrails, absolutely scale. Paragon 4 sound in both of these units. And of course, I shot them outside here with this beautiful scene that I've got. And I've got some fabulous photography of these. It just, again, illustrates how beautiful the models are these days. Are we spoilt? I want to say yes. But check that out, just absolutely gorgeous. Paragon 4 sound, Broadway Limited Imports. You can order them from Lombard Hobbies up in Lombard, Illinois. They've got a great stock of Broadway Limited product in their store. So it's a gorgeous day here for a photo shoot. I do have the Garden Railroad in the backyard. I've given you updates from time to time about this. And at this point, I'm just waiting for a bobcat to come in and level the dirt. I want to just have grass and a hill. And then at some point, over where the deck is, I'm going to build a smaller loop, maybe 30, 40 feet from the deck, a nice, beautiful 30-foot round trestle, and make an intimate, smaller setting, less maintenance, less track to clean, less landslides, less cutting of the grass, a whole lot of less of everything when I make it smaller. Because quite honestly, this Garden Railroad is going on it was built in 2000. And so it's 25 years old. And it's just been constant maintenance all summer for something that Initially, I would run all the time, like literally many times a month, to the point where as years went by, I simply would only run the Garden Railroad maybe once every 3 months. So it's not giving me the fulfillment for the amount of work that it was. So that's why we're going to make that smaller. One more thing I want to say is be sure to check out the What's Neat This Week video podcast that we shoot down here every Saturday night, keeping you updated on what's new in the hobby, the movers and the shakers of the hobby. So many businesses that we saw at the RPM meet are only just a year old, just new businesses. All that you can find on the weekly show because we're always updating and always recording new information that's current and relevant. So check it out. And with that now, we're going to continue on with the rest of this What's Neat. Break it up. Take a break in the middle of it. Stop. Watch the rest of it. Let's continue on with September's What's Neat. For this segment of What's Neat, I've got Tyler Haney and Matt Stern from Bachmann Industries in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hello, gentlemen. And you guys have got all of the new announcements, which is really exciting.
Yeah, we just came back from the NMRA National Train Show in Novi, Michigan, or Novi, and had a great show. Really great turnout. We loved meeting everybody up there. And yeah, we, as we always do every summer, we combined that with our mid-year announcements. We now have our mid-year announcement brochure here. So a little bit like old times, we're back on with you, and we'll go through some of what to expect from Bachmann in the next year or so.
Very cool.
I think if you can hold up the just show off the brochure for demonstration, I'll talk about some of these things. And we're leading off. We've got the 250th anniversary of the Revolution, the America Declaration of Independence coming up in 2026. We wanted to start bringing out some products to celebrate that, so we're doing a very special limited edition set. This is the 50th anniversary of the American Freedom Train, which of course back in 1975 and 1976 traversed the whole lower 48 with a train full of exhibits and historic artifacts from the first 200 years of American history. So this will be a limited edition set, one of 1,000, similar to the transcontinental set we did a few years ago. It includes the American Freedom Train GS4 number 4449, two brand new showcase display cars, and the press observation car. And it's a fully ready to run set with track and transformer. And we're also going to be bringing out as add-on cars the exhibit cars that follow behind the train. We're doing 4 initially out of the 10 that existed. There's a good chance we'll do the other ones down the road. And each car represents 20 years of American history. So car 101 represents 1776 to 1786 and 1786 to 1796 and so on. So it's always been a, I think one of the biggest, special trains, that as, in the great history of railroads in the United States, it's very up there at the top, very popular. And we're excited to be bringing out a whole set to commemorate the 50th anniversary of that train. I want to give a special shout out to freedomtrain.org. Todd Shanoff, he's the owner of that website, and he's basically the unofficial American Freedom Train historian. So much knowledge, and he gave us his knowledge and some artwork he recreated of some of the artwork that was displayed on the outside of the Freedom Train to help us make the model as accurate as possible.
Wow, that's cool.
And of course, we've had the GS4 in our line for a number of years with the Freedom Train paint scheme in and out of our line. This is the first time we'll be offering it with the cars, so you'll have the full consist. And worth noting about that is we're also updating the appearance of the outside of the GS4 to have some more accurate fonts on the lettering and some improvements to the paint scheme.
You know, I'll bet all the railroads, do you remember in 1976 and 75, how many railroads painted a locomotive to celebrate that? Do you think that's going to happen again?
There's been a few short lines that have been bringing them out already. You've got the Nevada Northern has a really nice looking SD7. The East Penn Railroad nearby us has a GP10, I believe, coming out, or a GP8. And there was the first one, I think my favorite, the Wheeling and Lake Erie SD40-2. So
It's a nice one.
some of the regionals are getting in on it. And I think we'll see the big railroads come out with something as well in the next year or so. So we're looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yes, that's
Depending on how many
exciting.
big railroads there are at that point.
So what else you guys got?
Yeah, so the second page, this is our Spectrum announcement for this year, and it's one that's been requested for quite some time, and we're bringing it back better than ever for the first time in 15 years, and that's the 80-ton three-truck Shay locomotive.
Okay.
This is a specific replica of the Cass Scenic Railroad number 5, and there were a couple of other railroads that had similar Shays, so we're bringing back Cass. We have a painted unlettered to put your freelance railroad of your choice on there. And we've got 2 brand new paint schemes, the Clear Lake Lumber Company and the very distinctive Pickering Lumber red Shay.
Wow.
Which is, I'm amazed that I don't think anybody's done a model of it before. It's just so different. Doesn't look like anything else that any other railroad had, or very few railroads had. I believe the story was that there was a neighboring narrow gauge line near where the Pickering Lumber ran these Shays, and in case there was a forest fire, the railroad had the Pickering Lumber had their locomotives painted red, so they couldn't be blamed for the forest fire if the other railroad started it. It's like, no, it was the black locomotive from the other railroad. Yeah. But getting back to the our model of the Shay, like I said, it's better than ever because it's going to have improvements. We've got a new metal drive shaft and gears for improved reliability.
Okay.
And for the first time, it'll have Soundtrack Tsunami2 on board.
That's going to be perfect.
We are going to have different configurations as well to match the prototypes. So a couple of different cab styles, different stack variations, and of course, you got the oil and the coal bunker versions as well.
That's going to be a welcome addition.
It is. We've been really happy with how excited people are to see it announced again.
Yeah. I know I'm going to have to get one personally.
So we have on the third page of the brochure, we don't have any models to show for them yet, but we'll make sure to have it up on the screen. We've got 2 brand new locomotive projects, and the first is the next variation in our ever-expanding Charger line, and that is the Siemens Charger SC42 Dual DM, the DM standing for dual mode, and these are equipped to run on both diesel power and electric third rail. These are specific to the MTA Metro North Commuter Railroad, official licensed MTA product, and we'll be coming out with 2 road numbers for those. We'll be doing some tooling upgrades to make sure that everything is accurate. You, of course, have the unique trucks with the third rail shoe on them.
Yes.
And we have some differences in the grille and door arrangement, so we'll be modifying the existing Charger to have all of those and be as accurate as possible. As with all the Chargers, it comes with TCS WOW sound on board with audio assist, keep alive, all the great features, sound and lighting functions that you've come to expect from our Charger models. So that'll be a big hit with the New York and New Jersey modern commuter rail fan crowd.
I'm just thinking to myself when you were saying that, I bet there are folks, and maybe I'm one of them, that just likes to collect each one of the Charger locomotives that you've come out with, for example, in HO scale, and then those beautiful passenger cars behind the VIA one, the yellow one in HO scale. By the time you start collecting the Amtrak, and they all fit on the right size shelf too, because they're about the same length. What a beautiful assembly of models that would be.
It really is, yeah. We've got the Venture cars already out for Amtrak Midwest and Via Rail Canada to go with those Charger locomotives. We've got Amtrak San Joaquin's coming down the pipeline. And speaking of our Siemens partnership, we've got another completely new and something completely different for us project coming, and that's the S70 and S700 light rail vehicle models. It's a this is something that's been in the works for quite some time. We kind of made a soft announcement of it back in 2019 when we first had our licensing agreement with Siemens, and now we're finally ready to officially announce this the S70 and the S700. So there's a very it's a small but passionate group of traction modelers out there, trolleys, streetcars, and this finally gives them a up-to-date, state-of-the-art, fully detailed modern model to put on their layouts. We'll have 4 different transit agencies in this release: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Charlotte, North Carolina, and finally, excuse me. If you want to make a cut there.
No, that's okay. I might make an edit here anyway, and I might not. Do you have one of the printed out flyers there that you can just hold up on the screen? Let me see what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, Matt has it.
Matt, just say some words so your picture comes up big. I might not do an edit here because we're having fun, but this, I want to see what my reaction is. Oh my gosh, I hope it's good. Show me, Matt.
So
Talk.
we don't have any actual pictures of it yet. We just have our official artwork and copyright-free photography that we use to combine to make the announcement.
Okay, this is cool. I think we saw something like that in Kansas City in 2019 when we had that Anamari National there. Is that kind of like what that is?
It's similar to that. The Kansas City one, I believe, is a CAF product, which is a different manufacturer, but
that's freaking
it's a similar
cool.
principle. It's modern low-floor light rail vehicles, and like Tyler said, this is the very first time we've done or anybody has done a North American prototype in high detail for the modern modeling market. And whether you're a transit modeler specifically, or if you're just a model railroader in general, it's going to be a great model to add to a layout, because I can't count how many layouts I've seen with streetcar tracks that this will look fantastic on.
So this runs up the street. It doesn't have its own dedicated trackage, correct?
It can do either. So the 2 versions we're doing are the S70 US and the S700. Both of those are very versatile vehicles. I believe the S70 US is the one that's set up more to be a high-density streetcar version, and it's more just to do with the interior seating arrangement than anything else.
Oh wow!
But they're designed so they can work just as well on either a high-density street-based system or a light rail system with its own right-of-way.
I can't wait to see what people do with that. That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Can you just see that little puppy all filled up with all the people and stuff? That would be so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now my memory has been jogged. The 4 operators in this release will be Salt Lake City, San Diego, Houston, and Charlotte, North Carolina. You'll notice looking at the renders and photos in the brochure that those cities all have different configurations of certain details. There's 2 different styles of nose with different headlight arrangements. You've got an open pilot with the coupler exposed, or a closed pilot, and those are all variations that we're going to offer with this model. For this initial release, it's going to be a DCC-ready model with a 21-pin plug to install the decoder of your choice. It'll be ready to run on traditional DC right out of the box, and it'll have full directional lighting, interior lighting, the whole 9 yards. So it's still very early in development. We don't have a sample to show for it yet, but we're in the design phase right now, and it's looking like a very promising model, and it's going to be very exciting for all the transit and trolley modelers out there.
And that's just the first model. Look at all the different types that are out there. You might be discovering a whole nother sector of the hobby. I mean, think about it. Doesn't Siemens make something like that? Like, we have Metrolink in St. Louis. I guess that's going on probably 25 years old. But it has its own dedicated track areas to keep the cars away from it, because she zips along pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We can't make any promises, but with our relationship with Siemens, there's a chance that you may see the St. Louis version coming off down the road.
Oh no, then I'd have to model Busch Stadium. Oh no, don't even. Oh gosh. Okay, all right.
All kinds of ideas brewing now.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh. Yes.
Something else that's worth mentioning about it as well is we know a lot of transit modelers do enjoy running actually from the overhead, just like in the real thing. So we are giving this model the capability to operate through the pantograph, just like on our Acela models and on our ACS 64. So they can choose to run either via the track or authentically with the overhead wires.
Wow, good design work. Great design. Good.
Thank you. We've got
So
a
what else do
couple
we
of.
have, Tyler?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, what else do we have?
Yeah, we've got a couple of HO rolling stock announcements. Some returning models here. Last year in the NMRA brochure, we announced the McKinley Explorer with an updated paint scheme. And then the following, and a couple months later in the catalog, we announced the Denali Express to complement it and the new brand colors and the new Alaska Railroad paint scheme. I'll be offering 2 add-on Colorado Railcar dome cars to expand the consist to each, 2 road numbers for the McKinley Explorer and the Denali Express. So the set will be arriving in just a couple months here. We are expecting to get it in by the end of the year, and I think the add-on cars will arrive shortly afterwards. And then continuing on the patriotic theme, we're throwing it back again to the bicentennial era. We've got the return of our 50-foot sliding door boxcar in HO scale, and we've got some paint schemes featuring special graphics for the U.S. Savings Bond program. Several railroads around the 1960s and even into the 1980s came up with these paint schemes to promote buying and holding U.S. saving bonds. And we've got 5 of those railroads represented who all painted up these 50-foot boxcars in various special schemes. Matt's going to hold them up on camera.
And we may, Ken, you said you might get this up on the screen too, right?
Yeah, I can take it right off your PDF and put it on the edit, onto the screen.
Yeah, so up on the top row there, you've got the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac with the Freedom Torch there. You've got the Louisville and Nashville, which use the same graphics. Very similar looking cars. I think it was just a coincidence more than anything, but 2 very sharp looking blue box cars. You've got Conrail, which was a little bit of a later edition. They painted that up, I believe, in the mid-1980s, but fits in really well. One unique thing about that car, which we don't show in the artwork, it's got a flurry of little stars going across the side of the car and the door, and that pattern is actually different on both sides of the car. They didn't paint it the same way, so our model will represent that as well.
That's cool.
And then we have the Northern Pacific red, white, and blue with the red trucks, which I think is my favorite out of the bunch. And then the Reading with the bald eagle in the middle on the door. So 5 very sharp-looking boxcar paint schemes. They come with or without the roof walk on the roof to represent those cars as they were built, and then later as they were modernized, depending on the prototype. So we're excited to be bringing that car back in the line and bringing out some nice patriotic paint schemes to go with it.
Sounds good.
And the car does have sliding opening doors, so you can have it in a a loading or unloading scene and position it with. You can even maybe do a little kit bashing and put a load in there with peeking out of the door.
Very cool. What's up next?
DeWitt Clinton, and this is something that we've had a lot of requests, and we've been seeing a lot of interest in general for pre-Pioneer era railroading in the last few years. So we felt it was time to bring back the DeWitt Clinton, which is of course a 1830s era train, one of the very first in the United States. I believe the second or third to run with actual carrying passengers.
Wow.
In the United States.
Okay.
So we're bringing that back in a set with an oval of easy track, just as it was before. But the new version will include an improved drive mechanism and an improved paint scheme as well.
Is the tender drive or the locomotive drive, which is it?
It is tender driven, and
Okay.
the reason for that being that if
No,
you
I
see the size
understand.
of the boiler on that, there's absolutely no room for even an N-scale motor to fit inside
No,
that
it's
thing.
perfect. It's a great little model. Those things run good even before you've reworked the motor in them. So yeah, rock and roll.
Yeah, it's that's kind of one of the fun things about working here at Bachmann and being in product development is that some companies they like to focus on a specific era of model railroading, and they're all great. I love at Bachmann that we can go from the very early days of railroading, the very beginning with the DeWitt Clinton, all the way up to the modern era and even the future with things like the Siemens models and the Acela 2, which will be available very soon. So it gives you a nice variety and something different to work on every day.
Now, Bachmann Industries is an amazing company when it comes to model railroading, because if you bring in Bachmann UK and the other affiliates, there are so many gorgeous models that have been made over the last 60 years. Just amazing stuff.
Thank you. And then we have one more train set as well to announce on this. And this is a little bit kind of a timely, unintentionally timely announcement, but this train set is called the Golden Spike. We've had a couple Golden Spike paint schemes over the year, or train sets through the years, a couple different configurations. And this one we decided, with the, it's a good name we wanted to bring back, and we decided to make it a Union Pacific themed set, since of course Union Pacific contributed to the first transcontinental railroad, and there may be a new one coming soon that Union Pacific will have ownership of. So this new Union Pacific set will feature the F7 locomotive and 3 colorful paint cars. You got the State of Maine boxcar, the Lehigh Valley gondola, Eastman Chemical tank car, classic Union Pacific caboose. Can't go wrong with a Bachmann train set, with the F7 locomotive. It's very classy looking. So we've got a couple of brand new train sets coming. We love being, being the leading train set manufacturer in HO scale, and giving, something for everybody, covering all areas of the country, different eras, giving some variety. And the Golden Spike just builds on that variety.
It does. And it's also worth mentioning that the picture that we have in the brochure that Ken will have up on the screen there's been some modification to the design since then. So the locomotive here is a single headlight version, and we've also made some changes to the paint scheme. So it's going to be a little more accurate to the prototype and include the both the headlight and the I guess was that a Mars light that was below the headlight?
It was just a secondary headlight.
Just a secondary headlight. But it will look more authentic to the configuration on the actual Union Pacific F7s.
Very cool, guys.
And I think after this we have a couple of Thomas and Friends announcements. We, as Tyler was saying, we cover so much in the the history of railroading and with our models from the very beginning all the way through to the future, and in this case into the world of make believe as well. So we have a couple of additions in HO scale to our Thomas and Friends line. We have in locomotives, we have Flying Scotsman,
Okay.
which is a fan favorite. Made its first appearance early on in the model era, where you just kind of got a tease of it by seeing the tenders only, before making a full appearance as a talking character with a face in the later CGI era. So we're bringing that to the line, and we're also bringing back Knapford Station, which is the big glass roof station, kind of the central station on the island of Sodor.
That'll be beautiful, yeah.
And we're making some changes to it from the previous version. We're updating the colors to make it more accurate to the show, and we're actually only doing one span this time. And in the previous run, we did 2 spans. That was the deluxe version, we called it. 2 spans of the roof and 3 platforms. So this will be 2 platforms and 1 span, and it'll allow you to build up to make however wide of a station you want, but start with a lower cost than you would have otherwise.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some fun stuff. As someone who grew up on Thomas, it's fun to be part of the company that brings back and recreates those characters from my childhood.
Let's think about that. You know what? I'm going to hit you with the Bachmann Thomas ad that we ran, where some of the items were on microengineering girder bridges, and I had the helicopter. What's his name? The helicopter?
Harold the helicopter.
Harold was up on a coat hanger, and then the folks at Bachmann, I told them Photoshop out the coat hanger. It was a beautiful ad. I probably just showed it on the screen, but you had to be, you were a youngin' when that one came out, because I think that was during the 90s.
It was very early on. I think we started making Thomas in 2002.
Okay.
I can picture the photo, and
That was a fun job. It was really.
I always wondered what that metal bar was, because we have the unedited photo here on the on our photography drive.
The key to it, I think, and the reason I stacked the items in the photo, I stacked them. That's why I used bridges and things, was to get all 5 or 6 items to be equally shown, distributed evenly through the shot. So a little bit of geometry in that, but it all laid out beautifully where Sir Topham hat right there in the shot.
Well, it was certainly an iconic shot for the early years of our range.
It's a fun hobby, guys. It's the best. And
It really
another
is.
thing I would say about Bachmann, which alludes to what you said a few minutes ago, you guys, you guys cover the spectrum of realism, but you also you have the collector's market. Look at the Hawthorne Village and all of the stuff that you guys do for all these different folks. Those are collector pieces. People put those in the closet and they bring them out once a year. And that's with Thomas. That's with so many of the things that you guys do, the different boxcars with all the pretty paint schemes on them. It's like in the old days when I was a kid, we collected beer cans because it was a cheap hobby, but they were all different.
Yeah.
All right. We have one more announcement, and this has been a very heavy HO announcement. We didn't want the N-scale modelers out there to feel like they were being left out, myself included. So we have a special announcement in N-scale, and that's the latest Amtrak paint scheme, Phase 7, going to be available on our N-scale Amfleet cars for the first time.
Nice.
Got 4 road numbers, two standard coaches, 1 cafe car, and 1 combination cafe lounge, featuring the new Amtrak paint scheme, kind of the curved lines, rather than the kind of the horizontal stripes that they've been known for many years. They're very colorful cars as well, with the new colors for the different classes of service. You've got green for coach class, a light blue for business class, and the standard Amtrak blue for the cafe car. So it's a very distinctive looking paint scheme. I think it complements the Charger locomotives that have been running around in Phase 7 very well. And those cars are slowly starting to get rolled out in the Amtrak service, into Amtrak service. They're being slowly repainted. So we're excited to be the first to offer them an N scale.
I'm seeing more and more of those because I see Amtrak on the way into the office most mornings, and it's getting to the point now where it's hard to see a train pass without at least 1 or 2 Phase 7 cars on it.
Very cool. You guys are on top of it with that stuff. Thank you very much, because we like it when we get to model what we actually see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is it for the announcements. Now, obviously, like Tyler said, it's an HO heavy announcement this year, and we do have one N scale item, of course. This doesn't mean that we're not going to work on any other scales at this point. I know we've had some concerned customers reach out already, but I want to assure you that once we go to our catalog for 2026 and potentially into next year's new product announcements, we'll be back with more announcements for our other scales as well.
Now that's very cool, guys. Anything else, Tyler?
That's all we've got for today. That's all I've got. It's always a pleasure to be on the show if you can. It's great to talk to you and talk trades, talk the best hobby in the world.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
It is,
the best
guys.
people in it, right, Ken?
Best hobby in the world with the best people in it. I love to say that. It just comes out and it makes sense. And so with that said, guys, thank you for the updates. And that ends this segment here on the September What's Neat.
Hey guys, George here from Soundtracks, and on this segment of What's Neat, Ken has asked me to put in a couple of Tsunami2s into his MP15s that you can see down here. Now, these are models that were originally equipped with sound from Atlas many, many years ago, and for whatever reason, the sound has quit working. So today, we're going to go ahead and show you what it takes to upgrade from the factory installed sound system, in this case, to a Tsunami2. And today we're actually even going to use some special speakers. So we're going to walk through the process. We're going to show you what it takes. And then we're even going to add some beacons on top of the cabs. As you can see here, the cabs are not equipped with beacons on there. So we're going to show you what it takes to add them on. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the camera up above, and we're going to go ahead and get started so you guys can see the work I'm doing. So we're going to walk through the process one step at a time and show you what I did each time. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we are on the workbench, and we're going to go ahead and pop the shells off these things first so we can see what's going on. So the good news is these are fairly easy to do. We're just going to come under here, and we're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver, and we are going to remove the coupler screws, and then the coupler box is simply just going to pull out, just like that. Now, the best thing I can recommend to do is to get some sort of a little cup or something. These are usually condiment cups with to-go orders. And we're going to use that to hold the parts when we remove them, so that way we keep them all in one location. And the good news is this is going to be fairly easy to do. So now we've got our couplers removed on each side. Now the body shell literally just lifts off. So we're going to go ahead and grab this and slightly pull it up. And what that's going to reveal, if I can get the shell off all the way here we go, is we have two wires going up into the cab. That's for our reverse light here. And then you can kind of see this has got the sound system here. We're going to replace that with a Tsunami2. And then this speaker, as you can tell, is kind of a, I mean, it's an older speaker, but it's very weak. And it's also not enclosed in a proper baffle, because this open part of the speaker is also open under here. So the sound kind of mixes together. So it's not the best ideal situation for a baffle. So we're going to go ahead and replace that as well. So first step, we're going to go ahead and pull the wires loose, make sure we understand where the wires are at and where they're going. So there's this, looks to be a heat shrink tubing of wires that's coming through here. We have our LED for the front LED. Then we have our two track power leads. And then there's two back here also. So most of this looks like we can probably just cut a lot of this out. Now on the back side here, there's actually a plug harness. And I'm going to go ahead and unplug this harness here. Let's see how many wires are actually in there and where they're going. Because when we come over here, let's go ahead and pop this out. So we're going to move this tab. We're just simply going to lift up and pull this out and loose. And yeah, you can see there's some tape and some stuff here holding it in place. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a knife and cut the tape. Because remember, all of this is going to get removed. And we're going to rewire the model so that way the decoder installation will be nice and clean. So we're going to move this up. Here's the tape. And you can tell it's kind of been in here a while. Now the other thing I want to point out is these two wires from the cab, they're actually pin removable connectors. So we can do that, and then that way we can move the shell out of the way while we're messing around with this. And so there's another harness up here up front for some reason. So there's our decoder, or what was the decoder, and this is easy, so we can pull that out. Now basically here we're just going to identify the wires, where they're going and what the purposes are. But because we're going to be redoing this a little bit, I'm just going to take a knife and kind of cut here in between, and we're going to cut this heat shrink tubing out of the way. And that way we can separate the wires a little bit more. And we're going to do the same thing on this front one. And come in here and separate that. Now we're going to throw that in the trash because we don't need to keep that. And basically, looking at this, it looks like this front plug right here actually has 6 wires to it. And looking at it, these are the 2 for our rear track pickups, the 2 for our front track pickups, and then the 2 motor leads. So the good news is we can quickly identify that. The colors are not important because they're just carrying electricity. So as long as we know what the wires are for, we have our wires here. And then the rest of these here, these actually go to our speaker and our lights up front. But like I said, we're actually going to take this out. So we're just going to unmount this up front. And I believe it's just mounted in place with friction. Nope, doesn't look like it. But you can see this is just a really small oval speaker. It's just held in place with some double stick laser. Oh, there it is. That's what's going on. There's a screw right there. So we're going to take that screw out, and this is going to come out just like that. So there we go. There's the assembly. And now our model is ready for a decoder. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this to the other model as well, because now we've done the exploratory, and we're not going to reuse this, but we can reuse this LED. So we can actually, you can see where he's glued this in place with some cyanoacrylate to kind of help hold it in place. But we're going to go ahead and just pull it out, and we can use these wires, cut them off, and that way we can reuse this LED. And then the speaker and the speaker mount, we're not going to need it. So if you want to keep it, you can. These aren't very good speakers overall. And of course, there's a big old mark right there in the wattage. So I'm going to say these are, chances are, probably a 1 watt max or peak. So they don't really produce great sound. Of course, then again, to be fair, neither did this original sound system. So if you want to keep it, great. You don't have to replace it, but I would highly recommend replacing it. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get the speaker that we're going to put in here. We're going to mount this in place, and then I'll get this other model here. We're going to get it taken apart and dropped to this same spot, and then we'll start working on installing the speaker, or installing the decoder and everything else up next. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've moved the camera in a little bit closer this time, and we have our speakers, and we're going to use these MP15 speakers from Scale Sound Systems. Now these guys, JT over there, makes some great speakers. They're designed to enhance some of the lower frequencies. They've got a nice sized cube speakers you can see built into it, but the best part about them is they're 3D printed in order to match a specific locomotive model. So in this case, and I got to look at this to try to remember how they fit in there. I believe it fits in there just like this. So that way you can see it kind of fits in here perfectly. So we're going to line up these pins. You can see here, and he's got a little notch right there, but it looks like it needs a little clearing out. So I'm just going to open this up a little bit with a knife and just kind of open up this pin mount right here, and that way it should line up perfectly, just like that. And then the other pin on the other side actually will come into this notch. So to show you, this over here is where one of the pins goes, and then the other pin goes right there. And so that's what we're mounting here. So on this model, you can see there's a pin right here, and then there's a pin right here. And these are the pins that are lined up in these speaker mounts. And so you can kind of see here how it just snaps into place. Now he's got it perfectly spaced here so that your truck doesn't interfere with anything. So hopefully you guys can see that. And everything lines up and holds in place perfectly. Then we actually even have a channel right here to mount our LED for the headlight and the number boards and everything. And everything lines up just perfectly, just like that. So what I'm going to do first, though, is before we put these in, we're actually going to solder the wires onto it. Now, in this case, normally you would use a purple wires for the speakers, but it's not that big of a deal. I got a whole lot of green wires, so we're going to use green wire. And the color of the wire really doesn't matter as long as you know what it's doing. So we're going to go ahead and strip and tin the ends. And we have this other wire here. So we've got the ends of these wires stripped a little bit. And don't worry about the fact that this is one single wire. We're going to trim the lengths off on each side, and we're going to do this for both models. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to put a speaker wire length about like that, for example, on here. Because we're going to come from the speaker, which will be mounted underneath here, to about where the speaker terminal is on the decoder, which is about that far away. So this will give us plenty of space. So we'll cut it about a 1/4 inch longer. And then we have our full wire on the other side. So we're going to take that away. And then I'm going to simply trim the insulation off the other end so that we can attach to the decoder and the speaker. Now we're twisting the wire here so that we can make sure that there's no frayed wires. You can kind of see this one looks a little frayed. So we're going to take that and twist it. And now you see a nice clean connection. Now I'm going to grab my flux to help me tin the ends of this, and just going to put a little dab on the end. Just like that. Oops, this one's come unfrayed again. So we're going to fix that. Put a little flux on the end. And let's see, where's the other one? Here's the other one. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the wires here, and we're going to go ahead and tin the ends. So I'm going to get my soldering iron, and this is lead-free solder, so we're going to use the temperatures about 680. We're just going to touch the end, and the flux draws the solder into the joint and makes your solder connections. In this case, tins the end of the wire. Let me get a little bit more for the other sides. Put a little bit there. And then we're going to do a little bit right there. So now I've got 4 tinned ends on the wire. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to solder to the speaker. Now, this speaker will, as we can see here, you can see that there's the pin, and this is where the other one's going to go. So we want our wires to come back towards the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder to this end of these terminals. And these are the terminals on the speaker. Now he's got marked red for the positive side. Honestly, if you're using one speaker, it really doesn't matter, positive or negative. We're going to take a little bit of our flux. We're going to put it here on these terminals. And then what we're going to do is we'll set the speaker down. Now, if you guys remember, a speaker is a magnet, and so it can attach. Well, we don't want it to attach to the soldering iron, so what I'll do is I'll put something like a pair, in this case, the pair of wire strippers. We'll put them over that to help hold that off, so that way it doesn't jump up and magnetize to the to the soldering iron. So we'll get a little bit of solder on the end here. We're simply going to line up our wire to the speaker. And just like that, the wire's soldered. So we're going to grab our other one. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And we're just going to make sure we solder it to that terminal. Now the biggest thing you want to make sure is that when you're doing the soldering, don't cause a solder bridge between the terminal and the back of the magnet, because that's metal. And so you can cause a short, and that'll damage the speaker and the amplifier. So I'm going to do this to this other speaker right here, and then I'll show you how we mount it on. And we're actually going to tack glue it in place. That way it just stays secure to the body shell, even during transit or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the wires. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, now I've got both speakers soldered with the wires. You can see that. And so we're going to go ahead and tack glue this in place. Now, as I mentioned, we have these tabs here. But what we're going to do is we're going to take some microscale crystal clear, and we're just going to put a little bit on here. This is a flexible adhesive that will help hold the speaker in place, not necessarily permanently, but it'll hold it in place enough that if we ever had to remove it for whatever reason, we're not going to then have to completely destroy and rebuild our model. So what I'm doing is I just put a little bit of this using a toothpick applicator. We put a little bit here on the pins, and then a little bit here on the flat surface that the speaker resides on. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to take our speaker, we're going to turn it upside down in the way that it's done. And like I said, we're just going to line up these pins. And you want to make sure that the track power wires are actually inside. So coming in here, you can see these track power wires are coming through the inside of these stands where the speaker's going to go. And so now with this in place, you can kind of see how much room we have. We've got just enough space. And then this is actually, looks like it's raising up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of tape on that to hold that down in place. We just get some standard blue tape. And remember, we're not trying to, we just want to make sure it's going to hold in place. and the glue adheres. So we're just going to put a little bit of tape over that just to make sure it holds, and then we're going to set that aside to cure and dry. I'm going to do this to the second one. We're going to do the exact same thing. Put a little bit of this crystal clear here on the ends, and then we'll put a little bit here on this pin and a little bit on this pin. Oops, get that wire out of the way. Nice and easy. All right, now we're going to take our second speaker and we're going to do the same thing. So this one, again, just does exactly the same thing. Pins down, snaps into place. This kind of locks down, and kind of see how it holds in place there. And this one, whoops, that one's not centered. There we go. Now it's centered. So again, you can kind of see how that truck has enough room to move. We've got our speaker wires coming up, and then we have our track powers wires steading out. This one appears to be sitting better into the glue, so I don't need to do anything to adhere it. We're just going to let that sit. If you wanted to add a little bit more there, you could, just as an insurance policy, just to make sure that it's going to hold well. And let's go ahead and do the same on this other one right there. Let's put a little bit more, and there we go. Now those are just going to get set aside for the time being. And this is a water soluble, kind of like canopy glue. I'm sure you guys have heard that term, but this one's made by Microscale, so let's support our industry and our hobby. And then we can just put that on and clean that off, and now our toothpick's ready to go for another purpose. And so in the meantime, we're going to take these and set them aside while they dry. Now, one of the things that Ken has asked me to do is to add a strobe or a rotary beacon or something here on the top of these models. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So the first thing we need to do is to get these handrails out of their sockets. And usually you can get a small knife to get in behind to kind of pry them out. And there we go. And so we're just going to pull these handrails out, and this one's easy because you can get right behind it that way and just kind of twist and it'll pull right out. Let's get in here and try to, let's go to this side. Looks like I've got a little bit more room to work with on this side to get it out. Now, when you're doing this, patience is going to pay off, because if you get impatient, you can easily cut this thin plastic, and that will then cause your handrail to break, or you may cut it. So it just takes a little bit of patience. There we go. Now those are loose. Now what we're going to do is instead, we're going to push down on these tabs, and I think these will come out a little easier. I've done 4 of these already for my personal models, but there we go. That one looks like it's going to come a little easier. So what I'm going to do is just kind of push on it. And that looks like that's going to come up. I'm going to get let's see if I can get this knife in here. Maybe get under there and lift a little bit. I don't like this. All right, let's see if we can get a little better grip from underneath here. There we go. Just takes a little bit of patience, and just slowly work these things off. And they'll come off. You just have to be a little patient sometimes. There we go. See, you can see a little bit of a crack here. So we can put our screwdriver in here, pull this up, and that'll give us some leverage underneath the cab. And now we can get this other side to pop out, just like that. Now these challenge ones are going to be the ones up front here. There we go. So that one's loose. Sometimes they tack glue some of this stuff in place, so it makes it a little bit tougher to get out, but just work with it. Know you can always go back and re-glue it if you need to. There we go. And it just comes right off, just like that. So here's now what you can see is you can kind of see the floor inside the cab here. And then we have our cab and these handrails here. So you're going to have to be cautious, know where these are at all times. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to put a rotary beacon up in top. So inside the cab, you can see we've got this light shield for the LED for the rear light and the number boards back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go off to the side a little bit, and then we can run our wire down through this channel here as well. So we'll have to take this front window out so we can get in here. Whoops, that tab broke a little bit, so we'll put some glue on that, try to get that back in place. There we go. I'll put some glue on that, and that should be good to go when we put this back on. So I'm going to go ahead and gather the materials I need, and we can just pop this window out when we're ready, just like that. And then we can, let's get this window out on camera. So we can just pull this up. Should be able to just push it upward. Like I said, I've done several of these on my own, so come on. And it's only because I've got you guys watching me on the camera here. I'm having all these difficulties. Come on. Well, let's do this. Let's take off one of these side windows, and that should help. No, that's not, that's got to come out after this. So we got to get this other window out. So I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and grab a little bit harder on it. See if we can wiggle it out. I know what the issue is. It's not freeing up on the bottom part down here. There we go. I think I got it now. Well, this one's a little stubborn, guys. Sorry for that. But tell you what, I'll wrestle this for a moment. We'll get it off, and then I'll come back and finish on camera here and show you where I'm at. Okay, guys, I went in and started editing before this was done, and I realized there was a segment that somehow got mistakenly not recorded when I recorded this. So basically what I did is I went in on the roof of these cabs and drilled a small hole, and it was after I wrestled the windows out, and I got the one window out in full tact and it's in good condition. The other window actually kind of broke a little bit, but it's inside, so it's not going to be a big deal. We won't worry about it. But what I did was I basically took my drills out, and in this case I drilled a hole using a number 61 drill and put a hole in the front center of the cab. And what that's going to do is that's going to come down right here behind this LED, so that way the wires will come down behind that, and then we can run the wires down the front center of the cab window that we got out, and then that will run to the decoder. So that's the segment that I lost, and I'm sorry about that, but that's drilling a hole. It's pretty simple to do. Yeah, so on with the video. Okay, I've got my LEDs here, and these are these 0402 LEDs. You can see they're fairly small, kind of in comparison. You can see in comparison to the light housing, you see they'll fit in here just perfectly. Now these are 0402 wired LEDs. I personally get them online. You can find various manufacturers or vendors of them. The one I bought from was a place called Lighthouse LEDs based up in the Northwest. I think he's in Seattle. But these LEDs come pre-wired. He sells them 50 at a time for about $27 and free freight. So you get them for about 50 cents a piece. I'll usually buy them 100, 150 at a time because they are fairly small. So by comparison, you can kind of see the figures here, kind of how small you're talking. So you can do a lot with them. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue this up inside of the lens here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put another dab of my microscale crystal clear, if I can get my fingers to cooperate. And the cool thing is that we don't really need to do much. We can just put a little bit here on the end. And the crystal clear will dry clear, so you don't have to worry about creating a frost or anything like that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to take our LED, we're going to shove it up and in, and then we're going to let this dry. Now to dry, we want the LED to be as high up in there as we can. So we're going to take a pair of tweezers, and we're just simply going to pinch that, set it up that way, so that way it fully seats in. And then we're going to do the same thing here on this other one that is already pre-trimmed. I'm going to take that and put a little bit of the crystal clear in here as well. And then we're going to do basically the exact same thing on this other one. So we're going to put our LED up inside of there. And then we're just going to take a pair of tweezers, grip it about right there, and then we're just going to let gravity hold it in place so that way we can let it dry. Now, I'm at a point where I need to let a lot of stuff dry. As you've seen, we've got our speaker housings drying at the moment, and then now we have our lights drying. We have our drills and our drilled holes in place. So we're going to go ahead and let this all dry and cure, and then we'll come back and put it all together. So I'll be back. Okay, we're back. Now, a lot of this is dried, and so just to test our LEDs, we're going to grab our LED tester, and this is a 9-volt battery with just a pair of connectors on the end, and one of them has a 1000 ohm resistor built into it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and test by touching these leads to the battery, to the LED, and to the battery, and then you can see we've got our light. And then we're going to do the other one just exactly the same way. But I got to strip these wires really quickly. Uh-oh. There we go. There's one. These small micro wires that come on a lot of these small LEDs are a little tricky to strip with the regular strippers, so you want to try to find some that are designed for the smaller wire. I have seen some, but I haven't gotten them yet. But there we go. You can see our LEDs are lighting on both of them, so we're good to go. So what we're going to do is the first one we're going to assemble. This one's kind of already assembled. You can kind of see how I have this one assembled. So what we're going to do on this one is we can just simply feed the wires down through the hole that we drilled in the top of our cab. And then we're going to take this and we're just going to mount it on top. Now we can mount it using either we can use the microscale crystal clear, or we can use CA glue, whatever is most convenient. Okay, so we've got our lens in, we're ready to go. And what we'll do is we'll get some of this slow ultra gel control. It's a little bit of a slower curing. Now we don't need our tweezers anymore. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little dab of this on a scrap piece of cardstock. In this case, this is an old set of tangent trucks that I had used in another model. But it's a great place to put the glue and adhesives. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the lens up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of this glue on the end of the toothpick, and we're going to apply a little bit of it very sparingly to the underside of this light. And the reason is because this way, when we bring our light down, we don't want it to smear all over the place. We want to make sure we have a nice clean adhesion. So when we come down, we're going to put it into place, and then we're going to hold it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we can just let that sit there. Seems to be holding pretty good in place, but we'll let that dry for a few minutes and then we'll put everything together. We'll go ahead and put our window back in. We'll run our LEDs back in. So we're going to let this dry for a moment. So we're just going to set this aside, and then I'm going to do this next one off camera and you'll be able to see that when I'm done. But we're going to pull this over here. We're going to let this sit. Remove this out of the way. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're ready to install or start installing our decoders. So let's go ahead and grab this first model over here. We've got our wires. We've got our track power wires front and back. We've got our speaker wires and our motor wires. Now in this particular installation, we're going to be using the Tsunami2 PNP. You can use any of the PNP boards that we have for this same process. You can use a Tsunami2 PNP, PNP8, or you can use a one of the new Bluenami PNPs, or if you want an Econami, we have our Econami PNP. Process is going to be basically the same. So what we're going to do is before we solder any of these wires together, or I'm sorry, before we mount the decoder in place, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the wires in. So we're going to go ahead and move this over. Now, a lot of times I'll use tweezers to kind of hold the wires out of the way so that when I'm working, I can organize where the wires go before they get there. So in this case, all right, so we're going to take these, move this back, and well, these are fine, and these are fine. So, all right, so before we mount this in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and strip the ends of these wires and tin them in place. So let's turn on our soldering iron. I'm going to move this LED tester out of the way. We're going to go ahead and strip the insulation off of these two motor wires. Now, the other thing, when we're at our workbench, we want to make sure we know which direction the motor is. Now, this has red and black. It's not always 100% guaranteed that that's the way these go. So you take a 9-volt battery and you know your plus side is here. So let's test. We can put the motor's wires onto this, and you can see that when I wire it up properly, the locomotive actually turns this way. So in this case, the black wires are positive and the red wires are negative. So you can see our positive here. So when I put the black wire to my positive side and the red wire to the negative, you can see now that it starts to move forward. And so that's how we can test to make sure that the polarity of these motors wires are exactly what we want them to be, or in this case, they're opposite of what you would normally do. So again, we're going to twist these wires, make sure that they're no frayed wires or loose strands that could potentially cause problems. We're going to go ahead and put the flux on the end of these wires, and we're going to tin the ends. So, oops, I put my cab over top my solder. So we're going to grab a little bit of solder on the end here. We're going to tin the ends of the wires. Now, because we know this, we're going to go ahead and take our red wire and go to the M- lead, since we know that. And then the black wire is going to go to my M+. And come on. There it goes. Okay. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put a little bit of flux here on the tab. And with our wires sticking up, yep, there it is. Just wanted to make sure. How did this come out of here? This wire is supposed to be stuck into here to keep it out of the way. All right, my black wire is still in, so I can still solder this. So we get a little solder on the end of the iron with our flux. Flux draws the solder into the joint and makes our connection. And just like that, we have our connection. Now the red wire seems to want to fly all the way through it, so we're going to bend it. We're going to solder it in place. And there we go. Now we've got our motor leads attached. Now we're going to add our track power leads. Now left and right, you just want to make sure they're consistent. So here you have a black wire and a yellow wire, and on the front you have a green wire and a brown wire. So the color of the wire ultimately doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Just make sure that the left rail and the right rail go to the left and right terminals respectively, on the decoder, so that way you don't have to worry about a short circuit manifesting itself through the decoder. So we're going to start with these front two wires. Again, we're going to twist the ends, and ideally you want to tin the ends here every time before, because then that way you get a nice clean solder joint every time when you're making your connections to the decoder. So we're going to solder the end here, and then we're going to solder the wire there. Okay, now the ends are tin. Now my brown wire's on my left side and the green wire's on the right side. So we can just come up from the bottom here, mount the wires into the respective holes. Now holding the decoder, we can put a little bit of flux on here. So now we're going to take the soldering iron, solder these joints, just like that, and then just like that. Now those front two are soldered. Now the question is going to be, you have wires sticking up through. We can trim that off because that's just asking for problems later. So we can come in here with a pair of side cutters and you can trim off any excess that's sticking up. And that way you get a nice low clean joint. And then we can do the same on the rear, but the rear is going to be a little easier to access because of where it is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pull our wires through here on the front trucks. And let's see here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mount our decoder in place. There we go. And our decoder should mount down just like that. Now, then we can take these motor leads and tuck them underneath the decoder, because it's just sitting here on top of the motor and we've got space below, and that way everything is there. Now, these are our two speaker wires. Now we're going to take those and attach them to the speaker terminals, which actually are right here. So we're going to be able to do a shorter version of this wire than what I was initially thinking. But I do want to move this green wire over. So I'm going to move where this decoder is mounting. Let's move the green wire over here. There we go. So now we have our two green wires. We're going to come around kind of like this, where the two speaker wires are going to come around and just mount right there. So the previous where I had cut the wires, no big deal. We're just going to resolder and retin the wires. You can keep the extra wire for something else. Not a big deal. I'd rather have too much wire and need to cut it shorter than to have not enough wire and either ideally replace it or having to add another one on. Because unfortunately we can't grow the wire. All right, so there's that. We're going to tin the ends of these wires. Come on, there we go. Get a little solder on the end there. Let's do another bit over there. And there we go. Now we've got two perfectly tinned wires. And remember, speaker plus, speaker minus. When you're using one speaker, it really doesn't matter. So go ahead and take one, attach it to one lead. And that one actually ended up being cut quite a bit longer, but that's okay. It's not going to be a huge end of the world. So let's turn this model around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of bend the wire. We're going to come down through the speaker terminals here. And again, we're going to put a little bit of flux on our joint. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned this in this particular video here, but this is flux that's designed for work on printed circuit boards. The type of flux you use is extremely important. As you can see, this one's getting a lot of use. It's wearing off, but this is called ChipQuik, ChipQuik. You get this from DigiKey SMD291. It comes in this syringe. This thing was $11, and you can see this is usually filled like this. I'm down to about the last little bit here, but I've probably had this for about 4 or 5 years, and you know I do a lot of decoder work, so this will last you a long time. But make sure you get this because this is designed for work with circuit boards. If you don't use the proper flux with your circuit board, then you can run into issues of the flux actually attacking your decoder and causing premature failure. So make sure you get the right stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold the wire up a little bit while my solder is being connected. And there's one, and there's two. And the reason I'm doing that is because the insulation, we don't want to have the insulation actually in that hole where we're making the joint. So again, we go to, whoops, that one's still loose. That wire is still loose. Okay. And this is kind of exactly why we're doing this. It's because we do want to make sure we apply heat to the actual wire itself. There we go. Now that one's in. Now, again, we can take our cutters and we're going to trim off any excess down below. Wait, why is that one loose? That one seems to be loose too. So let's fix that. There we go. Now that's in place. All right. Now you can use some tape or something if you wanted to hold this down, these wires down, but they'll be pushed down when we get the body shell on, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Next up is our rear track power. Now you can see these wires are extremely long because they were going to a different connector. So what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to trim them back. So I'm probably going to cut them about right there. So that gives us play on the end, so our trucks are not going to be impeded at all by short wires, but we don't need quite as long. So we can come in, oops, there's my cutters. We can just cut those a little short, store that wire aside. Now we're going to trim and insulate, or trim and tin our wire. Just like that. Okay, you're going to tin the end of the wire, tin the end of the wire. All right, now we're going to put a little insulation on our tabs. Put a little flux, I mean. Now we're going to come up through the bottom, just because I tend to like to do that a little better, especially for these track leads. So I'm going to bend the wire up a little bit. And then I will come up underneath. There's one. And then there's two. So now our wires are in. Now I'm gonna come in and solder those in place. And you can kind of see how easy this is. It really doesn't take a whole lot of effort. And there we go. Give them a tug and let's make sure everything is good. That looks good. And that looks good. This, let's see. Nope, it's soldered in. Just feels loose. It's in. So there you go. That's all it takes to solder these in. Now we can do some little bends under here, kind of give it some play. And there you go. Now we can actually go test the locomotive. We can actually test the decoder. We've got our track power leads here. We've got our speaker in, and then we've got our track power up here and our motor wires. So we can actually go test the decoder on the workbench, or I mean on the layout right now, and test it, make sure everything sounds good, make sure it looks good before we do the lighting. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up, or finish up the other one, do the decoder installation on this guy, and get those both ready to go. And then we'll also finish mounting the LED on the other cab. And I'm going to do all that off camera since I've already showed you once. And then we'll start putting all this back together, because now the only thing left is to add the lights. So I'll be right back. Okay, now that we've got our lights attached to the top of the shell and everything's ready to go, now we're going to install our shield. Now this was the LED with the light shield over it, and as I mentioned, we're going to piggyback this with our wires for the beacon. So there's a little notch right in here, and that's where our wires are going to come out of. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up our, this is the lens back in here, and this is what illuminates the headlight and the number boards inside. And so this is the light that we're going to move around, the light wires. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these come out. Well, wait. Yeah. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to have this come in. We're going to wrestle this into place so that way this snaps into place and the wires are protected, shielded, and they come out where we want them to, which is right in the center of the front windshield. Which, there we go. Now, as you can see, our light shield is in place. Our wires are coming down. Now what we want to do is we want to capture these 4 wires in the groove that is right here in our front windshield. So you can see there's a groove right there, and that's where the wires are going to go inside the front windshield. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this up, put it in, and then before we fully snap it into place, we're going to make sure that all the wires are in the place where we want them to be, in conjunction with that groove. So get that in place. We're going to get this one in place so that they're pretty much ready to go. That one's in place. That one's in place. So now we just need to manage our wires. So one of the things you can do is kind of twist them a little bit to try to minimize their impact. And then we're going to fit them in that groove. You can kind of see from the front that they're in the groove. And then we're just going to press these windows into place and snap them in. Well, it looks like one of the wires is trying to come out. I'm going to push it back in, push that back in. Okay. And this should snap into place pretty easily. It looks like it's almost there. It looks like a couple of these wires are giving me a hard time, so let's try to get them back inside this groove. So we're going to use our tweezers. And there we go. This should snap into place. Let's go ahead and get our pair of pliers here and just kind of grip it from the back, and let's get it snapped into place here. So there you can see it didn't really make a noise snap per se, but they're pressed in. And you can kind of see now that the window is flat and the wires come in through that channel. So now when we're looking at it, none of the wires are showing through the window, so we don't have to worry about that. Now we can untwist our wires and separate them out. So the last thing we need to do is we can put this back on the body shell. So we're going to fish these wires through. Now don't worry, this wire is extremely long. It won't be this long when we're done, but it's a whole lot harder to put water on the wire to make it grow than it is to cut it shorter. So we're going to run this through here, and then these other two wires, we're going to run those through for the backup light. We're just going to simply put those in place. Now the biggest thing is when we're putting this in, I want to make sure that these wires are as centered as possible, because it's easy to get them caught on these tabs as you're feeding it in. Like this black wire right here is over to the side. So as we snap this down into place, just make sure all the wires are out of the way, and this will simply snap down. Just like that. And now we can replace these handrail pieces. There's one. Oop, that didn't seat properly. There we go. Oh, that one's got stuck under there. So let's pop this back up and let's get that out. Okay. Sometimes that happens. It's one of the good things. They're super flexible on these handrails. Sometimes that happens. Just be careful. When doing this on camera, of course, every possible scenario will happen. So there's that one. Oops. And there we go. So now all of our handrails are back in place. Now, honestly, the only thing left is to add in the wires for the headlight and backup light. Now, on these models, you notice off camera, I went ahead and glued these LEDs into the channel that is provided in the Scale Sound System speaker, so that way they are ready to go. So basically, all we need to do now is we're going to attach these to this front two terminals. Now, one thing to note, if you can look really closely here, you'll notice that one of these has a oval shaped soldering pad and the other has a rectangular shaped soldering pad. So your oval shaped soldering pad on the Soundtrax products is indicating that this is your function common. This is the V+. And then the rectangular one, this will be your headlight, this will be your backup light, and then you have your FX 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 along the side. So when we're doing this, we can take our red wire, which is our positive to the LED, attach that to the oval shaped soldering pad on the front and the back. And then our red wire from the beacon LED, we can do the same. But one thing to note is on these models here, they come with these quick connect plugs. And you can see that there's a 2-pin plug here, or 2 single pin plugs, I should say. And this allows us to connect directly to the wires coming from the LED so that it's somewhat detachable. So we're adding another light, so it won't be 100% detachable, but at least it'll give us a good semblance thereof. So we're going to go ahead and turn on the soldering iron. I'm going to get some water for this. I'll be right back.
3 hours later.
Okay, I'm back with a wet solder sponge. Now, this will be the easy part. Now, we can shorten these wires a little bit because they don't necessarily need to be this long. So we can shorten this up. And I gotta find my cutters. Just simply shorten those wires. And we can do this on both models. Again, doesn't matter. Now we're gonna get our wire strippers. And these should be a little easier to strip. Since they're a little bit thicker wire. Whoops. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm just going to finish up one of these models, and then we'll go ahead and do the other one off camera, so that way you can see how to do it without having to watch me sit here and do this, because this can be kind of slow and boring process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my flux, put a little dab of flux here on the oval shaped soldering pad, and then we're also going to pre-tin these wires here, so that way when we make our solder joint, it's going to be a nice clean connection, and we got pre-tinned wires so that we can control how much these all get. Now we're going to get our solder over here. There we go. We're going to tin the end here. There we go. Now remember, you can always trim these short too. So once we tin the ends of the wire, you may notice that it's a little bit of a long lead, but we're just going to the hole right here. So we can go ahead and actually trim a little bit of that back. We don't necessarily need as much. Now the black wire I'm not going to do, because we're going to need to solder that to a resistor. So we're going to do that in a minute separately. But what I can do here is I'll take this red wire, all right, there we go. Nice, clean, perfect connection. And because we'll have space, we can move this wire back a little bit like that so that it clears. Now the next side we're going to actually attach to a resistor, so we need to get our 1000 ohm resistors. I tend to buy them at DigiKey by the hundreds. Let's see, so I need 3 for this project. Actually 6 total, because I need 3 for the other loco. There we go. And these are just 1000 ohm. Let's see, how many did I buy at this time? Oh, 100. Quantity 100 in big letters. How did I miss that? All right, so what we're going to do is we can trim the insulation, or we can trim these leads back a little bit, just like that. And we can actually pre-tin the ends of this resistor as well. And what that'll do is that will allow us to more easily solder to the wire. So we got some solder on the end. Then we take this and just hold it up against our wire lead. And there we go. Now we're soldered in place. Now, many of you keen eyes have noticed that we don't have any heat shrink on it yet. That's because we're about to fix that. So you can get some heat shrink tubing. If you get the heat shrink tubing that's just a little bit bigger than your resistor, then normally you can just slide it over the resistor. I usually get stuff that's pretty close, so it'll just slide over and then protect that joint. And of course now, because I'm doing it on camera, there we go. So you want to protect that joint. Ideally, you don't want to use a big heavy heat source. You can use something like a little lighter heat shrink, just a little bit at a time, and just shrink it down enough that it shrinks, but not so much that it desolders this joint. So that's a pretty good connection. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bend our lead, cut the lead down, and then we're going to attach this to the headlight V+. So we're going to go ahead and run our wires. We're going to grab our tweezers to hold the resistor in place, just like that. And then we're going to bring in the soldering iron, which somehow I moved my solder. There we go. I'm normally a little bit better organized than this. All right, and then we just apply the solder to the joint. And there we go. And there's our connection. Now we're basically going to do the same thing for the other joints, so I won't bore you too much on camera. But we are going to desolder these pads, or these wires, from the original circuit board, so that way we can reuse these wires, so that way we can disconnect, and then we can leave a little bit longer of a wire for the strobe light so that we can pick up our shell and move it most of the way out of the way. And there we go. So this just comes right off, and we're going to do the same thing with here with the black wire. And sorry for my hands kind of being in the way. We're just basically going to desolder that off of there. We're going to do that with the other one as well. Sometimes they put a lot of solder here at these Chinese factories, so bigger the blob, the better the job. Don't follow that. We advise against that. So be sure to learn your soldering techniques. We have a couple of videos on our personal YouTube channel at Soundtracks. Webinar 8 is all about soldering. And then there's some short classes about it as well, things and tips and practices for you, so you can be successful at soldering as well. This particular case, I'm gonna grab a little bit of solder from here to see if I can help melt this a little faster, because it doesn't seem to be wanting to melt. And there we go. So we get that off. Do the same thing to the other side. And there we go. So we got our 4 wires. So as I mentioned, what we're going to do here, and I'll go ahead and move this chassis out of the way for the moment. So we have our 9626 with the black frame chassis here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our red wires, which is this red wire and the red wire with the plug. We're going to attach them here to this V+ terminal. And then the black wire with resistors, like I showed you here, is going to go to the rear headlight. And then we're actually going to attach to the FX3 terminal right here. And then that way we have a nice clean installation. So I'm going to go ahead and make those solder joints off camera and be back in a moment. Okay guys, I'm finished here. I've got my FX3 wire going up to my strobe light. I've got my function common wire with my 2 plugs here, and then the red wire for my strobe light. And then I have the black wire here with the resistor for the reverse light. So basically all that's left to do is we plug these terminals in like we did when we first took this apart. And we're going to grab the V-, and we're going to attach these. And then when we flip over our body shell, we just need to make sure that these wires are tucked in underneath, and everything should just drop right into place, just like that. So now all we need to do is attach the couplers and then take her out for a test spin. So I'm going to go ahead and button up the other model. We'll get those ready to go, and then we'll head out to the layout to do a quick test run and some basic programming. We'll be right back. Okay guys, I'm out here at the layout, and as you can see, I've got the first one up here, 9629. So this is the Tsunami2, so I've got my DCC system, my NCE throttle here. So we can go ahead and check. We're going to blow the horn. You can tell it's got the horn. We're going to go ahead and move in the forward direction. Oh, this needs some track cleaning. And then we're going to go in the reverse direction, and you can see we're good to go. And then we've got our headlight, we've got our backup light, and we have our rotary beacon up top. Whoops. So what I'm going to do is just do a couple of quick little programming tips for you here. First off, our headlight and backup light, those are directional. We can leave those as they are. But our rotary beacon, we want to make it a rotary beacon. Now, as we did an LED. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the lighting effect. Now in this case, this is the FX3 lighting effect. So referring to the user's guide, we can see that the FX3 lighting effect is controlled or governed by CV51. Now CV51, when we look at the list, we can see that we've got a whole list of different lighting effects, but a value of 7 will turn on a traditional rotary beacon. And the rotary beacon kind of simulates the reflector spinning around, so your light's going to get brighten and dim, brighten and dim. Now, because this is an LED, we want to add that extra element of animation to the lighting effect. So we're going to add a value of 128, which tells the decoder that this is an LED. Now it doesn't change the output voltage, but what it does do is it changes the way the signal is sent through the wires so that your LED appears more animated. So in this case, we're going to go ahead, whoops, let's turn this on. We're going to turn on our light. Now just to show you the difference, we're going to go ahead and program CV51 to a value of 7. Now you can see it's kind of there, but it doesn't really give you that real effect like you would expect. So now when I change CV51, we're going to change it to a value of 135. Now we still get that same thing, but now you get that pop of that LED. Now personally, I like to slow this down a little bit. So flash rate is controlled by CV59, and I'm going to change this to a value of 7. So you can kind of see that it's now a little bit a slower pace. So now you get more of a sense. You can adjust this. It's a value from 0 to 15. Slower numbers equals slower rotations. This actually looks a little slower to me. So let's set this to a value of 5. That's probably a good, nice rate. So that gives us a good illumination for that light. So next up, we want to choose the sounds. So the sounds on this one is actually, you're hearing right now is an EMD 567, which is the default for our Tsunami2 for EMD. But we want to make this the EMD 645 non-turbo. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set CV123 to a value of 4. So now you're hearing that change. And now you're going to hear that prime mover startup that actually is an EMD 645 non-turbo, and that would be what was in here. Now the horn on this is a 2 chime. So looking at my list, I'm going to pick this Leslie S2M. So my horn choice is in CV number 120, and that's going to be a value of 25, I believe. Yes, 25. So now when I exit out, you can get that nice loud horn. That's the 2 chime, and that's the S2M, since this only has the 2 chimes. Now you can go into a whole lot of customizing on these models. In this case, the first thing we want to do is we want to set the address. So just to show you how we can set the address on here, you're going to program on the main. Now I do want to point out I'm sitting here on some Kato Unitrack, and the reason I did that was because I wanted to read a couple of CVs on this decoder, because these were harvested out of other models I had. As I upgrade mine to Blue Nami, I went ahead and put the Tsunami2 in here for him, since that's what he asked for. So I had to go in and double check and make sure what was already set, and then I actually just reset the decoder. CV8 to a value of 8, cycle the power, and that's why I'm on the Kato Unitrack, separate from the layout. So to program the address, we're going to program escape, program on main, enter, loco 3, enter, we want to change the address, we want to change it to a long address, and in this case it's long address 9629. We press enter. Now the DCC system has set the CVs in the background to set the address so that it matches 9629. So you can see loco 9629, and I have full control of it. Now this will work on any main line, provided that there is no other decoder on the track using the same address. So just for example, we'll go ahead and grab our second locomotive here. We're going to go ahead and put this on the track. Now all of these settings I'm going to match on this one here as well. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to select loco 3. Now I'm using this one. So I'm going to show you again. Now this is 9629. This is address 3. Program on main, enter, loco 1 for address, 1 for long, 9626, enter. Now 9626, I still have control, but when I go back to my 9629, I still have my control, and then when I recall 9626, so this is how you can go in and customize and match your models. Now, we can program all CVs all day long on the main line, provided we're sending it to the right address. So any decoder that's on the layout that's set to 9626 or 9629 will now also respond. But that's where having one locomotive on each layout, having their unique address, is a great idea. So guys, I hope this has been helpful for you. This is just a quick, I say quick, this has been an overview of what it takes to install a decoder into these Atlas MP15s that we can upgrade from the original QSI. And we've also upgraded the speakers here using the Scale Sound System speakers. And again, I'll put the link here below. So be sure to check out JT and his speakers. He's got a great plethora of speakers that are designed to match specific models. He also sells Soundtrax products there, so you can be one-stop shopping with some JT speakers and great Soundtrax decoders. So that's this segment of What's Neat.
All of the products seen on this episode of What's Neat are available from Lombard Hobbies in Lombard, Illinois, or order online at lombardhobby.com. Broadway Limited Imports, the cutting-edge leader in model trains. Check out their website at broadway-limited.com. Bachmann Trains. Now that's the way to run a railroad. Check out their website at bachmanntrains.com.